Well, with the recent growth in large mega stores, small-town mom-and-pop retailers have largely become a thing of the past. And this shrinking number of local retailers is also attributing to a shrinking tax base, revenue that pays for things like infrastructure, leaving many towns in the state with aging pipes and sewers and no way to fix them. In our continuing look at our crumbling infrastructure, we re-examine an idea we first learned of in 2008 called the 1 cent solution, a legislative proposal that asks state lawmakers to take from the rich to give to the poor. Well, from its early days, downtown Wewoka was the center of commerce. Main Street, the place to be on a Saturday morning.
You know, in the early 70s, if you was not on Main Street by 8:30, there was no parking place in or around Main Street here in Wewoka.
But times have changed for this small central Oklahoma town. Gone are many of its large manufacturers and the retailers where their employees spent their paychecks.
It's easier to drive 6 miles away from here and go to a super center than it is to shop here in town.
A dynamic that's driven many small mom and pop stores into oblivion. And with their demise, the tax revenues their stores generated.
Your retail sales tax helps you with your police, your fire, your maintenance of your town. At some point, your utility system cannot support the entire town.
As Wewoka City Manager Karen Johnson says, raising retail tax rates isn't an option because in towns like Wewoka, there are few places to even collect them.
Wewoka's downtown district, yes, is a lot of empty buildings, a lot of lost sales. And, you know, I don't know, part of the problem is there's no place much to spend your sales, your money here in Wewoka.
And therein lies the problem. Oklahoma has some of the lowest property taxes in the nation, which is great for business or if you own a home. But the catch is it also makes us overly reliant on sales tax revenue, which is fine if you live in a town where there's lots of retail. But if you don't, it makes it extremely difficult to fund city services.
Our sales tax system has not been adjusted to deal with the realities of modern retail sale.
Representative Steve Martin is co-author of a resolution that would adjust Oklahoma's current tax system with something he calls the 1 cent solution, taking 1 cent from existing sales tax collections and distributing it by population and not by where the taxes were collected. Resolution co-author Phil Richardson.
Well, basically what this would do, if it passes the House and the Senate, it would go to the ballot to be balloted on by the citizens of the state. It does not require a signature of the governor, but it would be a constitutional amendment.
Under the proposal, more than 400 smaller Oklahoma communities could see revenues rise, while the largest 50 cities could see their tax revenues fall. Oklahoma City Mayor Mick Cornett.
Well, not easily. You know, you're talking about the elimination of between 100 and 200 positions in police and fire, and it's hard to imagine how you would explain that to voters. But I think the idea of distributing sales tax dollars on a more equitable rate really draws attention to the fact that rural communities are really hurting under the current system, and that is a real issue. Certainly no one who's in charge of a big city budget is denying that the rural communities are hurting. It's a real challenge.
A challenge the Oklahoma City mayor believes could best be solved on the state level rather than penalizing more prosperous cities.
In a city the size of Oklahoma City, we've done a pretty good job of competing at the sales tax level, so we're set up to succeed. And if you look at the suburban communities who have all the retail, they're set up to succeed. So there are certain communities who are set up to succeed. But if you start talking about rural communities who don't have a Walmart, for instance, they're not set up to succeed. And they've got real issues, and issues that are not being met by the current system. And that's got to be addressed somehow.
Yes. Now, while much of rural Oklahoma faces the same dilemma, this is far from just a rural problem. I'm here in Spencer, Oklahoma, a small suburb of Oklahoma City that's facing many of the same challenges of crumbling infrastructure and no way to finance its repair.
The unique thing about Spencer is it's a small city with big city problems. Our proximity, I mean, we're right next to Midwest City, right next to Oklahoma City. And with all the problems that they have, we have the exact same problems, but not the revenue for us to be able to address everything the manner in which they do. We really need help so that we can do that.
Ernest Ware is mayor of Spencer and says their revenue is literally walking across the street.
Walmart just located recently right next to us in Midwest City, and they provide low prices for things that our mom and pop shops normally do, and they really can't compete with the bigger stores and franchises. So it has had a negative effect on us, on our sales revenue.
Causing some stores to close and making city services harder to provide.
The thing that concerns me is, you know, I believe our police department is about 39% of our budget, and the fire department is about 22% or something like that. And those are not revenue generating services that we provide to our constituents. So, you know, we really have to have our sales tax to support those kind of things that I think are important to the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens.
Services Ware is adamant about for good reason.
I think if we had more tax revenue, we can make sure that we have police protection, trained police. We have gang problems in all of these small cities now. There wasn't a problem before, but we need to be able to train our people how to deal with that. It's vitally important that we have tax revenue for our cities. It's the only thing that really keeps us functioning.
We can't stop the small towns from dying if they're going to die, but we don't need to starve them to death. We don't need to take their money and then criticize them because they've been unable to compete while we watch them die.
Here's where we're headed. We're headed to a state where the smaller communities either have a Walmart or they don't. And if they don't, they will cease to exist. That's how significant this issue is.
Now, when this legislation was initially introduced in 2008, the proposed bill did not make the deadline to be heard in front of the full House, essentially killing it. And while Martin says he still believes the 1-cent solution is viable, he's going to wait until next year to reintroduce the legislation in hopes that the state's budget gaps will have lessened.